Well, I want to talk a little bit about silver and survival. And, basically what it means when you have these coins out there and you have to have other items. And yes, you do need fiat cash. That's absolutely a fact. But, if we actually came up into a situation where we had one emergency, like Hurricane Sandy, then there was another emergency, something else popped up, I don't know, and then something else and everything else. Well, you know what you would be doing if you had fiat cash in dollars? You'd be spending the fiat cash first before you'd be spending the silver, right? I mean, the fiat cash and the silver, you'd be spending the fiat paper dollars first before you'd be spending real silver. And this is actually the age-old principle. The good money will drive out the bad money. Because, at one point in time, actually, it would become more obvious, too. If, like, say, for instance, the electronic banking system was falling apart or something due to power failures or something. I don't know. Just throwing an idea out there. But say it was falling apart and everybody was using paper cash. I think the faith in that paper cash would start to be diminished much, much faster, and because people wouldn't want to hold it as easily. At first they would, because they'd feel it's safer than electronic money. But as far as them parting with silver over paper cash, they'd be parting with the paper cash first, because that is what the impetus is going to be, that physical silver is going to start going up in relation to real assets. It's going to take a series of events and actually prolonged collapse type timeline before physical silver is actually recognized for its true wealth. And that's probably where you're going to see, people panic into the metal because, but it's going to take some time yet. It's not going to actually happen that way, and it's not going to be that pretty of a picture. So, in the meantime, I would suggest to people to do one little survival thing at a time. You don't need to be planning to run into the hills. Like, this girl's working on her cracker motorcycle. She's a crazy cracker herself, anyway. But anyway, you do one thing at a time. And you don't have to do nothing like stupendous. Simple ideas sometimes are the best because they're cheap and they're easy to do. I talked about various things like water bladders and stuff like that. And oh yeah, buy a gun. We live in the United States. We have a Second Amendment. I know they're going to try to restrict our rights, but buy yourself a Kalashnikov or some shit with I don't know, just because. Just because the powers that be, you must be scared of them damn things for all I know. But that'd be a cool one. You can mount it on your cracker motorcycle and ride around with it or something. I'm just kidding. But anyway, you wouldn't be doing that excessive. But, yeah. Well, you could actually put it on your motorcycle and use it for, when you transport it to and from wherever you need to go. But that's, something else that's okay. But, if you got a motorcycle, you can blast through the borders and stuff like that, head on through the desert. Go around places that the cars can't fit through and, maybe bust a couple of those border gates, by going around them and not going through them. So that's the way you got to do it. So just a little bit of imagination. Yeah, I was talking about structures, too, yesterday. Like, for instance, we had the FEMA was out there with New Jersey putting up tents and making people live in freezing tents. Now they're thinking about putting all these New Jersey residents in a formerly closed prison. Beautiful quarters, right? But you know what I'm going to tell you? And see, this is where a lot of people screw up on things, too. Like on YouTube when they're making these films and presentations. And I'm not getting into detail. I'll probably do one later about this. But, if you had like a tarp, you bought something like this. This is a pretty good size one, 16 by 20. 16 mil thick. Now, 10 mil thick is about, that's super heavy duty. 16 mil thick is like the strongest there is. If you combine this with, instead of buying silver every time, if you combine this with pressure-treated lumber, and you have pressure-treated lumber on hand, and say, for instance, you have a problem where your dwelling gets all messed up due to weather, and you had this stuff around, you can make yourself a temporary structure, or you can repair a roof with this very easily. There's a lot of ways of doing it. You can put it over the peak of the roof, nail it down with 2x4s, and your roof doesn't have a hole in it anymore because a tree branch fell through it, right? That type of stuff. Or if your whole place gets clobbered, you could still make something with this tarp combined with pressure-treated lumber. You don't want to, I'm not putting out what it is like in detail right now, but I know how. But the biggest problem with making a structure is the roofing, and tarp can work as roofing very good. But if you want to have something, you don't want one of those blue ones. You want one of these super strong ones like this. This stuff will probably easily last a few years, even against the UV rays of the sun. So, that's what I have to say about, that. It's like, you want to be prepared, and you want to do things a little bit at a time, and make sure you have all your, your things in line before the emergency does happen. So these are things to get besides silver. Now today the markets look pretty freaking steady. So I'm going to say that I don't think silver's going down to 22 and stuff like that. There's some people out there, some analysts out there that think it's going to crash below 26 when it tests it for the fourth time. I don't think it's going to test it. That's what I'm thinking. There's too much. Well, it's not like it's so much for silver like the mines are running out. There's plenty of silver you could buy. But what's really wrong is the problem is with the dollar. It's the fact that, the budgets are looking like crap. In other words, they're going to break. They're just going to raise the debt ceiling. They're going to ignore all the budgets again. So that means that the bond ratings are going to go down. So that's not going to be good for the dollar. It's not going to happen like real smooth. But at one point in time, somebody like Moody's is going to announce that the dollar bond to bond, the debt rating in the United States has been downgraded. Moody's will do this at one point in time. Probably, they're not doing it before the election. They're going to do it after the election sometime when they start spending more money in the government. So that's going to be very bullish for gold. It's not like gold inherently just became worth more. It's just that the dollar inherently became worth less. So that's what's going on. It's simple. Everybody knows that, but it's not going to be as dramatic as you think. So, but the thing is, with silver, the next point where if it closes over 35, that's going to be about the point where it's going to take off to the next step. And then I guess from the next step might be over 40, but then you might have the problem of margin rate increases. But it's going to continue to go up. What's really going to drive up silver is when there's a problem in the Middle East and we have the war going with Iran. But it's not going to be a pretty picture. It's like it's your survival insurance fund. That's what's going on. So your survival insurance fund should also include things like tarps, pressure treated wood, food, that type of stuff. Now, speaking of survivalists and Ann Barnhart, I got respect for this lady, but it's like, she's a little bit, I don't want to say she's crazy, but it's like she's not taking the smarter approach, in my opinion. She quit I think she was running some kind of investment house, and she quit that because she realized after John Corzine did that stuff with MF Global, she's done with this. She thinks the system's going to fall apart. I think you're right, Ann. Okay, I believe you are correct. But then she went off on a. This is where. This is the danger of people getting overly worked up about stuff because you're being led into the fire and you're being led into a trap. And that's my opinion. What's going on with her? She decided to not pay the taxes, which to me, taxes are a bunch of bullshit anyway. Everybody thinks that, but everybody pays them. Well, pretty much everybody pays them. But just not paying them because the IRS is not legitimate, which I agree they're not legitimate in principle, but they got too much force. That's sort of like jumping up out of a entrenchment and trying to charge the enemy head on. You don't do that type of stuff. It's like you're going to take a bullet, That's actually what she's trying to do and go to jail over this. I don't know what the hell she's really doing. Maybe she isn't going to. Maybe that's not going to happen. I don't know. But, I would take this approach because I think the IRS in a lot of ways are like anti-Semites. And the reason being is that, in this country, believe it or not, some of the top businessmen out there, it's actually men usually, are Jewish. And you know what they got to keep paying? Taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. That just makes them not want to do more business. And, you realize it. When they're doing business, they're hiring people. Things are moving. There's trade going on between different groups that need to have this one produces this for this one that needs that. And, they got viable businesses that are helping out America. And they pay a lot of taxes. So I guess a lot of that money goes to Israel too, anyway. So he gets that's how they get paid back. But I don't know if that's I don't know how that works to tell you the truth. But you know, um, in her situation, it's doing this direct frontal assault against the IRS is not smart. So I don't know what she's trying to do, and I don't know. I don't know about this lady. I agree with her in principle. The tie. I don't know what the heck she's doing, but it's like telling the Al Qaeda, I'm going to burn your Koran with a slice of bacon in between each page, and here's my address. Go kill me. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be around this lady, to tell you the truth. Because I'm like, that ain't how I do things. God, lady. I mean, really, come on. I mean, I agree with you in principle, but I don't understand what the hell she's doing. So when she's talking about the economy's going to implode, I believe that, probably, or it's going to change around a lot. I don't think the implosion's coming as fast as somebody like this is saying, but she's basically right. She's basically right. So, but on this other hand, I don't know if she's playing a game here too, which could be a simple marketing game. Which in other words, when you say these outlandish things and maybe there's nothing really behind it. I don't really know if she's not paying her taxes. I mean, I really don't know this for a fact. I mean, I don't know if she really published her address and told the Al Qaeda, like, hey, I'm burning the Koran with a slice of bacon in between each page. I don't know. I mean, she just could be I don't know. She could be playing a game, too. But if she wants attention, I could say this. I got a friend of mine that works with Bang Bros down there in Miami, South Florida area, and we can put her in a movie. So if she was starring in a movie and she presented all these things like this, I'm talking porn, she could really grab a lot of attention. And I think her message would reach a lot more people that were not just conservative, but also the more liberal element out there. And, doing it for the cause of, getting people informed could be very well a good thing, and she'd make a lot of money at it too. So, just wondering what she's really doing here. And sometimes I wonder, I don't know, we'll find out. We'll find out what happens. But if she's actually telling the IRS, especially as somebody in her position, that understands the markets and what's going on. She was like an investment advisor, she had her own brokerage house, whatever the hell it was, Barnhart Capital or something. If she does that, just goes right against the IRS and tells them, screw you, I ain't paying you, I don't know what she's thinking. Because to me, that's just like jumping out of the entrenchment and charging at the enemy full force, and you're going to get clobbered. You don't want to play that kind of game. So, I would play it from another angle. That's what I would do. I wouldn't really say on here what that would be, because you never know. You would never want them to understand what your plan is. It's actually shrewdness and cunning. Like the Mossad says, deception is the key. Basically, that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to get out there full frontal assault and say, "Oh, I'm charging right at you. You guys are evil," because they're just going to take you out, and that's what's going to happen with her. But I don't know if she's really playing that game. She's definitely not stupid. It just could be a publicity stunt. But if it is, hey, like my friend, like I said, he's a freelance multimedia person that works with Bang Bros. We can get you a lot of publicity down there in South Florida. We set you up in a movie, and so you can walk in there with your tie and with your signs and stuff, and you can make your presentation. It could be softcore or hardcore, but probably in your case it'd be softcore because you're too Christian. But that's okay. That's okay. It'll still get a lot more attention than what's going on now. So anyway, for this final conclusion for my silver update, all you cracker motorcycle riders and non-cracker motorcycle riders, keep preparing. And silver actually in a real emergency situation where the emergency kept on going, and it was a series of emergencies, a series of events that go in waves, you'll actually start to see the silver be going up as in true value. People would want that over the paper cash. Like, in other words, if you needed to get space heaters for your house or something like that, people might give those up or sell those more readily for silver versus fiat cash as a crisis keeps continuing for longer periods of time. See, it's not going to happen in the short term on a crisis, but in the long term, and if there's a series of crises, you're actually going to see your silver be the smart thing to hold. That's going to be the thing. But you want to do everything ahead of time, so keep working on stuff, and get your tarps, get your water, get your food, and all that type of stuff. Don't panic. Stay cool. I mean, the smartest thing would be, the nicest thing would be, is if everybody did this and stayed cool, because then you wouldn't have a problem. I mean, it'd just be like, everybody working together. But I just realized that probably 99% of the people aren't going to do a damn thing, and 1% are, and the 99% is going to be mad at the 1%. But you know what I got to say, what can I say? Well, I want to be the 1% because I personally like to live and things to be smooth. So that's the way I think. So anyway, that's my update. I don't think silver's going down to 22. Probably once it hits up to closes over 35, it's going to be off to the races again. And I just want to leave you with this thought. If you remember way back when silver finally broke 20, remember that? People were like, 20. You remember when it broke 30? You know what the consensus was back then? And this wasn't even that long ago. Late 2010. People were, what the consensus was back then? It was too high. That's not even that long ago. And it's about 10% higher than that right now, even with all the pullback and everybody thinks it's bad. So, it's going to move up. It's just that when it starts going over 50, people will say it's too high. And, those are my words of caution I've said many times. When it goes over 50, 60, sell a little bit. That's what I say.